is about this morning. You can see some props in front of you, some wiring harness and things. So the Marshall team will be walking you through all of that. I'm Donna Buzar. I'm the KCIT project manager that's just joined. I'm new to King County. I've been here about a month, so lots to learn. But I'm digging right in to help you guys get through all this training and make this a successful pilot. So Nora will be joining us shortly. I think maybe you know her. Some of you do. And let's introduce the Marshall team. So.
I'm Terry Bartlett with Marshall GIS. I'm out of Boise. I'm a account manager, I guess, so I'm part of the management team, along with a couple other people who aren't here, Elizabeth Marshall and Rhett Harmon, who would be here, but he's on vacation this week. And then
Michael Travis, Associate Engineer at Marshall GIS. For King County, I will be your installation manager.
And I'm Zuva Donduro. I'm a marketing database manager, and I will be going over the portal for this, the customer service.
he's also in charge of setting up all the recording equipment for us.
Good stuff. Okay, so that's the team.
You want to say anything, Chris?
Nope, it's all Donna's deal. I think most everybody knows me here. I'm just fleet operations manager, so. And for those of you who don't, I'm Chris, so.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to start off here. So we're going to go through a few PowerPoints. And if this is, once again, this is the AVL, Automatic Vehicle Locator System that we're going to be doing training for installation that King County is going to be deploying over the next year. AVL is with a common term you hear out there. Who's heard of AVL, I guess, to begin with? Anybody? Just new to people a little bit? Okay. So you guys heard of AVL a little bit. Sometimes it's called GPS telematics. So I'm going to sort of do an overview of the system, just to a conceptual overview. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael, and he's going to actually sort of talk about the details of installing these telematics devices. And so we're going to use my. Oops, you've already. This is our agenda for the day. We've done the introductions for the most part. We're going to do an overview. We're going to do some device overviews. We're going to do best practices for installing the devices. And I guess we're all going out, I didn't realize there's going to be such a big group, but we're all going to go out and install these devices. And Michael's going to go through that with us. So you get hands-on experience in installing these devices. We're going to come back here. We're going to review and sort of go through just a number of processes for, what was the word I'm looking for?
Standard operating procedures.
Yeah, standard operating procedures, and then testing. If something goes wrong, how do we look and test for those kinds of things? And then Zuba is going to go through. We have a web portal that you can access to with a lot of information, and Zuba is going to go through that. That's sort of going to be the process. And I think some of you, I don't know, we're going to do 3 sessions today, so I'm not sure who's all going to be in the 3 sessions. But so anyhow, without further ado, let's go through some of this. Once again, we've done the introductions. Michael, I'm Terry, the account manager, and then we've got King County folks here. Here's the different sessions, starting at 8. We're a little early. Maybe we're early for us, but we're probably late for you guys, so I apologize for that. Going to be doing the light vehicles with these devices, LMU 2630s. We'll talk more about the hardware here in a little bit, and then we'll go out and do some installations, and then we'll come back here to the classroom and sort of review and let you guys ask questions and question answers part of it. So I wanted to start off with, and this is sort of my perspective of this a little bit, where does this technology sort of, where do we use this? Why are we installing this technology for the most part? And so it's really, the term is telematics. It's collecting information using machine-to-machine technologies. We're plugging it into it. Each of these devices has a GPS chip in it, so it's tracking the location of these devices. It has an accelerometer in it, so it's measuring G-force for kinds of things. And so what we're getting from obviously from the GPS, we're getting locations information, so it's a location-based system. And from the accelerometer, we're getting G-forces, so we can sort of start to track and manage, and we're really looking for metrics, metrics to help manage by. And from the G-forces, we're getting metrics on aggressive driving. And according to my car talk, which I was listening to just a couple weekends ago, one of the questions was about aggressive driving. And according to the car talk guys, aggressive driving is the leading cause of deterioration of vehicles. So there's a fleet maintenance part of that, obviously, and that's you guys here for the most part, of trying to, make the vehicles last the longest and keep them in good shape for the citizens of King County, I guess. And then there's the whole risk side of it, right? If you got people out there driving aggressively, there's a bigger chance that they're going to get in accidents. And then there's risk and association for the county. So we're trying to lower the risk for the county, try to improve the vehicle maintenance for the county. So we've got a sort of a fleet maintenance side of it. We've got accountability and risk for the county itself, is trying to make sure that we know where people are. There's a safety and risk part of it. It's going to be throughout the county. So like we've got currently is Westchester County, which is New York City. They have all their parole cars. People have this technology in there, and they've got little events set up. We won't get into all that, but they've got events set up. So if they have to do home visits, if they're there more than 2 hours, then it sends out an automatic email to somebody. They're there more than 2 hours, they shouldn't probably be there. Somebody check on somebody. There's so safety aspects of this technology. So there's the accountability, risk management. You guys have probably heard about the fleet management side of it. We can get some engine diagnostics, and Mike will be talking more about that. We can get odometer readings from this, and we can feed it into your Faster where your asset works, so you're automatically gathering this information. We can track idling with this, engine idling. So most fleet managers these days are trying to manage the engine idling mostly for fuel savings. So as we all know, we all leave our engine or your car's idling mostly for human comfort, whether we're trying to keep the vehicle warm or trying to keep it cool in the summertime kinds of things. So that's sort of a thing that fleet managers are trying to manage. And the industry statistics are, if you manage idling, you can at least save 10% on your fuel budgets every year. Those are the sort of numbers that are thrown around part of it. And then there's this other part down here, which we think is the biggest return on investment for this technology is to help manage crews. We've got crews running around. Where are my people, and what are they working on, and what have they completed in time? So historically, that's all been done by paper-based systems, work order systems, inspection systems, and just in generalities, using all those paper-based systems, it's maybe 50% accurate. People just, most people are trying to be honest and they're trying to fill it out, but just historically, there's a lot of variability in there. So we can measure lots of different things, a lot of work activities. The best examples are linear activities, how much what streets were swept, and when they were swept, how many, when the last time, which streets were swept and when they were swept, kinds of things. Plowing activities, spreading activities, spraying activities, so we can connect up to onboard sensors. It feeds it through these telematics devices. And we'll get into that here in a second. So, big pile of stuff there. So it feeds all that information, connects up. Mike will talk about connecting up those different devices. So we can help get, once again, metrics to help manage by. So right now we don't really have, generally speaking, we don't have good consistent metrics, because humans are, the way they enter information by paper and by hand, there's a lot of variability into it. Machines really don't know anything. You set it up, you set up the business rules in there, you sort of define what those are, and it just collects the information, and so you get a consistent. It's not always 100% accurate, it's never utopia, but at least you get a consistent level of data that you can then use to do that. So here's sort of the overview of the technology. We've got these telematics devices. You got some of them sitting out there that we're going to be installing in the vehicles. It's getting a satellite a GPS location from a satellite up there. It's collecting this information. Let's just say we're collecting sweeper information. We've got it connected up to our brooms, broom up, broom down. It's feeding it out through, we're using the Verizon system, but it's usually feeding it out to a cellular tower. And then it goes out here, it's being stored, quote unquote, out on the cloud. And then you can use any connected device to access that 24/7. So a connected device would be a laptop, a tablet, a smartphone, a PC, and you'll all get logins today. So you'll be able to log into the system, but you can log in from anywhere. It's accessible from anywhere in the world to see your access the data. And then going forward, like I said, we'll be connecting up to these different things. We'll be connecting up to various different sensors on vehicles, like I said, to sweepers, to snow plows, to spreaders on these to plow trucks. So any kind of PTOs, any kind of sensors on these vehicles, feeding out to the cloud up here, and then we'll be feeding this information, and that's what these folks here will be in charge of, is feeding for the fleet information and feeding to your faster systems and to like odometer readings and engine hours and those kinds of things, feeding it directly into your faster system or your asset works. I don't know which you guys using faster? Both? Combination of both. So we'll just auto-magically, as I like to say, feed all that information in there. So you'll have up-to-date, real-time odometer readings for all your vehicles coming from these different systems, for example, which will be set up to, I guess, automate work orders, maintenance and work orders and those things. Any questions that make sort of sense conceptually of how this stuff works? I'll try to go over some of the conceptual stuff here. We'll go through more detail in the trainings of how to use the system later. Today's focus is really just on the installation, and then later on, we'll go through a little bit today as we come back in the second session to show you some of the vehicles, but we'll be doing user training of how to use the actual application and stuff here at a later date, correct?
Thursday.
On Thursday, okay.
But if I may,
Yes?
let's make sure that, feel comfortable here, ask questions, because make sure that we understand everything that we're doing here, so that at the end of the day, we understand what we're putting in and why and what it's doing. That's kind of the whole gist of all this, is making sure. So don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, ask us questions, throw questions, and we'll have another session afterwards. You know, once you get out there and get one of these installed, you throw questions at us. That's what we're here for, and answer as we can. So I'm trying to give you a conceptual overview. That's my part of today of what the system is. So this is sort of a view of the main application. It's customizable, so at some point in time, I'm sure the customizations we made to the UI and how you look and feel for various different users. But generally speaking, we've got vehicles. You'll still have a map, and you can see vehicles, live vehicles, sort of running around out there. We don't see them here because we're just a PowerPoint, but eventually you'll be able to pull up this map and you'll see where all your vehicles are in King County. I say that loosely in a sense that there's a whole bunch of privileges where you can set up so certain people will have access to certain vehicles, to view certain vehicles, and that'll be all organized at some point in time going forward. So like the DOT people will see their vehicles, and Parks and Recs will see their vehicles, and I'm not sure how this works here. If you guys get to see all the vehicles, since you're the fleet guys, we're not. But anyway,
we already have it set up.
Oh,
It's
okay.
good to go.
All right. But anyway, so there's ways to sort of slice and dice it so everybody doesn't see everybody's vehicles. That's a sort of an administrative configuration thing going forward. But you'll be able to see live vehicles. You'll see these little vehicles moving around. You know where they are. So we've got the maps here. We'll have a vehicle tab up here, so the list of vehicles we'll be able to see there. And then we have this historical view here. There's a little query tool here. You can see the start and stop dates. You can query data. Data will be online. I forget what's been negotiated with King County, but generally speaking, data is going to be online for 3 years. Do we have something separate?
Yeah.
Anyway, So data will have historical data online for up to 3 years. So I can go back and look at theoretically from 2015 and look at a particular day and look at a particular vehicle and see what it did on that particular day. So you can query down to the minutes if you want to, and just query down there. And then I talked briefly about these events. So an idling is an event. So it's really an event-driven system. So by default, the system comes with events like idling and speeding and aggressive driving, and certain set of events that are in there. But then you can sort of program, and that's what the IT folks will be working on with your administrators, and developing other events that you want to sort of set up in here. There is, which I'll talk about here in a minute, it does come with a sort of a maintenance tool in here. You guys won't be using that, but one of the events that you would set up in the maintenance thing is obviously oil changes and those kinds of things. So that gives you, try to give you an idea what an event may be. But those are all user configured. Like I said, comes preset with some events, but then you can configure as many events. Those are sort of like business rules as you want to, things that you want to track. You say, okay, I want to know when this vehicle is being used past midnight, and you can set up an event. And once you set up the event, you can see these events happen down here. So here's an acceleration event in the events tab. You can sort of see it here. And then you can also see them up on the screen. They'll sort of, right up here, there's a little dot. You can configure a symbol so it flashes if there's some event, somebody's speeding. Not too often people sit there and watch maps and watch to see if an event's going to happen. I'm just going to keep trained in there. So usually what happens is you get set up a report. So like an idling, you may want to do a weekly event on idling or monthly to sort of track all the idling that's going on. And what'll happen is you'll say, okay, well, Bob's been doing a lot of idling lately. I may talk to Bob and say, why are we idling so much? So you sort of, that's what the metrics come in, right? You get this constant measurement from the machine itself. And then you can sort of look at it. If it goes up or goes down, you can say, well, why is it going up or down? Is it good or is it bad or whatever? And then you can talk to them and see what's going on. So one example is I've got a operations manager over in Idaho, small little town in Idaho. He's a streets operations manager. And they have a dump zone where they dump stuff. And it's like the water cooler of the office where people get in there, 2 or 3 guys get in there, and then they start shooting the bull and whatever it can be. So he measures when they're in the dump zone. He gets a report. It's emailed to him every morning. I guess the other way to get these events is get an email, just a report. So he gets this report emailed to him every morning. He's trying to keep it under an hour a day. So they average about 4 or 5 times they visit the dump zone, and then he sort of gets a report. And if it's it's an hour and 10, an hour and 15, or 45, he's good to go. He starts to see where it's 2 or 3 hours a day, he's probably going to say something to his crews. And so that's sort of the management of the crews. Sort of gives you an idea of how to use these different events. There's geofence events, and if you're going inside of a particular boundary or outside. So events are something that sort of drives the system. You define what it is you're trying to, well, we manage by exception for the most part. When everything's going smoothly, we're all good, but when the vehicle starts to die out there on the highway, that's the exception. You want to start to know about it. So once again, we've got a whole series of reports that come standard. With the system, you can configure your own reports. Those will probably build over time, but we have a whole set of standard reports. One of the reports is odometer report. I'll just say this just to throw it out there. Sound Transit's been using the system for going on 3 years now, and for their maintenance vehicles. And one of their key things is that they get this. I can't remember if they're using FAST or using AssetWorks, but they use this odometer report to feed into their FAST or their AssetWorks. I forget which one they use. Is it AssetWorks? Okay. So anyway, it's just a sort of a standard report. You can see the vehicle name, when it was last used, the current odometer, and when the odometer date was taken on there. And we can set these reports up to some configurations we can do with these reports. We're not going through that. But here's where you set up on a schedule, so you can automatically generate these reports. If you have some sort of idling report you want to get emailed into your inbox every week, it's a weekly report or a monthly report. You can set up so you just pops into your inbox at 5 o'clock every morning. And they're really easy to set up and schedule. I'm sure there's going to be somebody, an administrator, that'll probably help you guys set all that stuff up and what you need going forward. So these are the geofences I talked about. You can set up these geofences and track when people come into the geofence, when they leave the geofence, when they came into the yard, left the yard, all the kinds of things that you want to track. Here's the maintenance thing I said. You guys probably aren't going to be using this. You have your own maintenance tools. So then you can set up these different views. It's just a way to filter the data, so you can group vehicles by department, or however you want to group them. You can set up these tags, they're called tags in the system, but you can group vehicles however you want to do it. Then you can use that to filter and query your data, show me all the information for this group of vehicles. Or you can also set up a view so you can see different types of vehicles. There's a pull down there, so you might have fire and transportation and parks and rec and these different views that you can take a look at. Just an easy way to filter your data. So we got the views. Once again, this is looking at all the fire vehicles. I think this is City of Vancouver, looking at their fire vehicles that they have. There is you guys probably won't use this here, but there is a dispatch tool that you can use to dispatch jobs out to a mobile client. There is a mobile application. It's free. It comes with a system. If you're on a smartphone and you sort of put the URL in for LEGO, it'll automatically give you the mobile view just because it's set up to do that. On a laptop or a tablet, you can define whether you want a mobile view. It's a simpler view, has less functionality than the overall application, but you can access that. So operations managers use it a lot in the field. They just want to see where their guys are, so to speak, and working on different things. And if you work great jobs, you can dispatch those out. Then you can do some routing kinds of stuff with it. Just showing an example of once we start tracking when the broom is down, say on the sweeper truck, we can actually start to sort of look and see where they were. This darker colors when they were driving the tracks when the broom was down, and the lighter colors when they were driving when the broom was up. And this sort of shows a sort of a standard sweeping report. So almost every jurisdiction in the country has a sweeping plan, so to speak, and a lot of them have nice maps of here's how we're going to do the sweeping. But hardly anybody knows what was actually swept, because it's really hard to track linear events, especially. You say, okay, they swept half of that road and a quarter of this road. You can imagine trying to track that by hand, how difficult that is. So this is sort of this technology for linear events really is the sort of the cat's meow, so to speak. This is a sort of a customer service. We call it proof of presence tool. So you guys get a lot of reports. I don't know if you guys get them necessarily, although I do know that the fleet manager in Boise has to many times go out undercover. And when he gets reports from somebody, we see the city truck at McDonald's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, kind of a thing. And so I know in Boise, we've talked to them many times, and the fleet manager has to go up and sit undercover with his glasses on, wait at McDonald's every day to see if he's there. So this is the things that you get. We saw your truck speeding, your truck hit our truck, you had gravel on your truck that broke our windshield. And so this is a tool you can use. You can use your mouse, you can go in and look at a particular area. You can find out what vehicles were there. You can query it down to, once again, to a minute if you wanted to. You can put other things, were they speeding, finding the vehicles that were speeding. So you can sort of do all these little query things. And it's really a handy tool for organizations from a customer service standpoint to respond to citizens' input. You guys didn't, nobody swept my street for the last year. That comes in a lot of times. So you can go, okay, you can go in and take a quick look. It's like, we just swept there, and they had the room down last week, and we swept there the week before. And so just be able to respond to customer query types of things. So this is once again using the geofences. Sound Transit has a little boundary. They just want to know when people are leaving their district boundaries. So they have this weekly report that they get, and it just shows somebody left there and spent 1-2 minutes up above the thing. So they just get a report. I don't know how they use it necessarily. I'm assuming they're saying, okay, if somebody went 150 miles outside the boundary, they may sort of take a look at it if they're a couple miles outside the boundary, which is probably rough. pretty rough boundary anyhow. They're probably not gonna worry about it, right? But if somebody were to go 450 miles outside the boundary, they may wanna take a look and see where they went and why they went 450 miles outside the boundary.
And I can add to that, there's a lot of what the tools that everybody wants to use in this, our outside customers from this, our internal customers. Parks using it for maintaining their parks in their areas, how many vehicles they have in them. Roads, you said sweeping and plowing is another big thing. All the different maintenance that goes in it, solid waste wants to track their trucks, where they're going and whatnot, so it's a tool that's gonna get used. Many of the things you have there are just more general.
Yeah, yeah.
Quite a bit of usage is just gonna be used there for more just managing equipment and managing what they're using it for in each area and utilizing it.
Yeah, so that goes back to my original slide with those 3 circles, right? We've got this risk and safety piece of it, we've got fleet maintenance part of it, so hopefully it's gonna support you guys and help you do a better job in doing fleet maintenance, by getting up to date odometer readings, and hopefully some engine diagnostics and some other kinds of things. And then all these other departments, all their operational crews, it's gonna support them as well and stuff. And I know the city of Boise, same kind of thing with the parks thing. They had no metrics, they had no idea how much time each one of their crews were spending in their parks. They've just never measured it before. So they had no idea. I mean, I live in Boise, I know they do a good job, and the parks are always in really nice condition, but they just never had any feel for how much time it was taking every week and stuff. So just, once again, just sort of getting these metrics to help manage. There's a ton of different, there's hundreds, literally hundreds if not thousands of telematics devices. I'll just start with that. We support a number of different manufacturers, probably over 100 manufacturers, kinds of things. By default, we use CalAmp equipment. They're a US-based company, and that's what we have here is CalAmp devices. And even within CalAmp, they have, if you were to cruise the website and CalAmp's website, they have hundreds of telematics devices. So there's ODB type ones, these are wired ones, these are the ones we have today. There's another wired device that has an RS-232 port, so we'll probably be using those like on the snowplows because we want to connect it to the spreader controllers, and it takes an RS-232 port, an input port to do that. This is a sort of a device that's a tracker, and it's also used as a wireless hotspot in a vehicle, kinds of things. This is a similar device down here. This is a CalAmp one. This is a Cradlepoint one, and tomorrow I think we'll be doing some Cradlepoint stuff. We have a Cradlepoint one here. We'll be doing some installs and testing that as part of our pilot as well. So it works both as a tracker and it also serve as a wireless hotspot so those people that are doing work orders, need to get connected in the vehicles can do that. Now we can track Garmin devices, and then we can use those also to feed job stuff out to. We can also track tablets. These are telematics devices. They have a accelerometer, they have a GPS in them, they have obviously a cellular card in here, so we can track those as well. Anyway, a number of different devices up there. We can also, which we're not doing right now with King County, but to sort of give you a feel for it, we can also do this what's called driver ID. So you put a scanning device in the vehicle, and you use an RFID, either a button, a little iButton kind of thing, or if you have those cards, like HID cards, you can track not only by vehicle, but you can track about who's driving the vehicle. So that's Sound Transit's actually using that technology. So they're getting a driver name with each vehicle. So the use case for that is you have multiple people driving one vehicle. So you want to know if somebody was speeding a lot, who is the driver when they were speeding. So just a way to do that. But that technology is available there. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael. He's going to dive more deeply into the hardware piece and do the installation piece.
All right. Sorry. So how's everyone doing? Doing good?
Put him asleep? Yeah.
All right. So what the device you have in front of you, if you do have a device in front of you, is our 2630 lineup of device with the VPod 2 accessory. VPod 2, you just saw there's a huge slew of accessories. It is particularly made for gathering OBD2 type data. So what does this mean for you? It means for most of your installations where you're getting OBD2 data, It is a simple plug-and-play affair. What we're going to do is we're going to go into a little more of the specifics of installing it and best practices whenever you install this device. And feel free to stop me anytime you have a question. So, because this is a 2630 and not our traditional OBD device 3030, you still have all of your inputs and outputs. If you need to attach broom, police siren lights, any additional input or output, you could still hook it up to this guy. This means that you have a much wider range of applications that you can use this on than what you would say get with a Verizon telematics device, which is a simple ODB plugin.
So how many inputs can we put on this device for each device?
Well, answer to that, like most of the answers whenever you're dealing with physical hardware, is it depends. Hardwired, we have 4 spare inputs for digital high and low. However, we also have an ADC, analog digital converter channel, and from that, if all you want is a bunch of buttons, we can multiplex that, meaning you can have 254 inputs and outputs.
Generally, we're going to do four.
But
four
generally,
inputs.
we're going to stick with those 4. If you need more, we can do that.
And that one of the other devices with the RS-232 port as well has more capabilities for inputs as well. So if we get to a vehicle that we need more than 4 general inputs, then we can work to get a different device.
There is also that. Outside of the devices you have in front of you, us at Marshall, we have developed a way with these devices where we can install any communication protocol. So we can attach this to, say, a Dickie John or a Rexroth or a Cirrus, any controller you want. Going to this particular model, the VPod 2 OBD reader, some few key points that you need to know. One is that OBD2 data only became standard back in '97. If you're dealing with an earlier vehicle, may have all the fields, may not have all the fields. It's going to be very vehicle specific. There is a general list of PID values that are universal across the board. We can get all of those. So that's just a general run through of what you're going to get from these devices and what your capabilities are with these. So how many people here have ever plugged in an OBD2 device into their personal vehicle before? Most everyone has. So I'll spare you on the boring details. Best practice for us, whenever you're dealing with regular plug and play with these guys, leave the OBD2 port alone, plug it in. Whenever you need to do a diagnostic, if it comes in, unplug it, plug in your diagnostic reader, then plug back in the OBD2, the VPod.
Putting the splitter cables in?
If you are dealing with a splitter cable.
Yeah, we're doing splitter. We are.
Yeah, we're doing this,
Yeah.
we're not going the direct, it's going the splitter
Yeah.
because of.
If you,
Okay.
all right,
Sorry.
that's okay. If you are doing splitter cables, these splitter cables in particular are designed to plug into most OBD2 brackets, whether they are screw-on, whether they are snap-on, whether they are slide-on. So, as a good example here for this Subaru, you have a metal bracket. You just simply pinch in on the sides, pop out the old OBD port, pop in your splitter, make sure that's good and connected. If you are using tamper-evident sealant or tape, that would be where you would put that sealant or tape on. Then you will take the other side of your splitter with the snap connector or screw connector and pop it back where the old bracket was. As far as anyone is concerned, nothing has changed on the vehicle. You will have a spare input to plug in your OBD2 reader. No, on most vehicles, this OBD2 port is a gateway onto the CAN bus. It can only support so many connections at a time. You can plug in your diagnostic reader, but while your diagnostic reader is reading, the VPod can't read. Once your unit is up and running, there will be 2 lights on it. One light's green, one light's orange. Orange is your cell modem, green is your GPS. The green will go solid whenever you have a good GPS fix. The orange will do 3 blinks whenever it's okay to connect but not fully connected yet. Once you get to that point, turn it on, wait for it to go solid, and then you're good to go for your test drive. Remember, whenever you guys place these devices inside of the vehicle, to make sure that those lights are still visible. That is your first step on troubleshooting if anything goes wrong. Oftentimes, things that go wrong are, say, for instance, grounds, or on certain older vehicles. I can name one in particular, a 99 Jeep Wrangler. The V-Pod will tend to blow the fuse on its first installation. So just keep that in mind, that some OBD ports don't like having devices permanently plugged into them.
I get to ask all the questions, sorry. So where are the lights, where am I looking for lights on this thing?
The lights are going to be next to your 20-pin connector. Most of you have a device in front of you. You can see down one side there is a 20-pin harness. The 2 lights will be on the right of that, or left if you have it. And we have a good image right here.
The amperage does this draw?
It will draw 200 milliamps. Unless you have an older vehicle where the OBD port is linked directly to the alternator for its power. Then it cold draws whatever the alternator puts out.
So does it draw that even with the vehicle off, 200 milliamps?
With the vehicle off, it will enter into a hibernation mode where it will draw a lot less. Note that it does have a draw at all times. But in hibernation mode, it goes down to, I think, 50 microamps of draw. So, I mean, don't leave this guy plugged in for half a year, but you're okay if it's a vehicle you use once a month. Once you get done with the installation, we have set up a general user, which we will give you all the username and password for it, where you could go on to LEGO and you could see the tracks. And if it's tracking good, you have successfully installed the unit. And if it's not tracking good, then we have to go back to troubleshooting. Most of the time, in my experience, these guys track phenomenally well right out of the box, if all the lights are on or not. The only time I've ran into problems were specialty cases, like very old vehicles, or vehicles that just weren't meant to have this kind of setup. During the other installations, if you were going to be present at the other installations, we're going to go over the non-OBD version of plugging in the 2630, and we will also go over installing the 2830, which is a completely different beast as far as these AVLs are concerned. So who's ready to go out?
Question.
Question.
You said do not plug it in for like half a year, but our equipment, some of them we don't even use. Summertime we just let it park, like the snow plow. It will sit for like 8 months before we go back start again. And that's a make in 1964 Oshkosh.
1964 Oshkosh.
Yeah.
Well, 1964 Oshkosh is not going to have an OBD connector at all, not even a J1939.
Okay.
So this one will probably not be used on the Oshkosh.
Okay.
We'll probably
There's
be
some different gear we're looking to use on that stuff. That's out the airport.
Yeah.
We've identified some that it'll be kind of a different deal. It's similar to what the traders are using.
Yeah.
Or for a situation like that, we actually can use the 2830 there, which does have a chargeable battery, and when hooked up properly, you can unplug it from the vehicle, bring it back into the shop, and plug it in and have it charge. And then whenever you go back out, you can just toss it in. We have a client that's currently doing that for pretty much all their vehicles. Any other questions? All right. So, let's see. I noticed that